This is the home of Celia and Eugene Mayers. Beautiful area of Coral Gables, Florida. They bought this home in This is the home of Celia and Eugene Mayers. Beautiful area of Coral Gables, Florida. They bought this home in 1957. And it's still one of the loveliest areas in all of Miami. There's my 1986 Oldsmobile Cutlass. And this is my mother, Celia Mayers. She's 81 years old. Was born in Baltimore, Maryland, to Ezreal Flitman and Amelia Stone, one of 4 daughters.
In
1913. Okay. Her father was married 7 times. Her mother was married 5 times. And Mother, tell the story of when your father brought home that one of the women that he married.
Okay. After all, my father and mother were divorced. And my father had custody of the 4 girls. So he had to get someone to look after us. I better make it loud, Joe.
Loud you can.
And he married a lady. After my mother and father were divorced for a few years, he married a lady, and she came into the house, and when she saw the house with 4 girls in it, she said, what's this? He said, well, these are my daughters. And she turned around and left, and they broke up, and they were divorced immediately.
Did she ever have any children with him?
Yes, she had one, but she had already gotten pregnant on the honeymoon. So she had 1 daughter.
Have you ever met the daughter?
No, I never met the daughter. But that was really sad for the daughter because she never had any other siblings.
Right. And we understand that you spent most of your childhood in boarding homes or foster homes. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it seemed like since my father couldn't get anyone to take care of us, so he decided to board us out. And he boarded. I was just about 6 years old when that happened. So, and I can even remember when I was boarding out in this woman's house, and it was during the First World War, and they were limiting the amount of sugar and coffee you could have, and she used to send me to the A&P to stand in line to get that sugar. Anyways, we didn't stay there very long. So my father found another place. And this other place didn't have, it was out in the country, and we didn't have milk, only from a cow. And we were used to having milk out of a bottle. So we wouldn't drink the milk. And so they eventually had to find a bottle to put the milk in so we would drink it. We didn't stay there very long. And I had a little experience, I'll tell that, a little experience there. As soon as I came, there was a fellow about 6, I was about 8 years old then, and there was a fellow about 16 had a horse and buggy. Want to go for a ride? And I said, yeah. And I went for a ride, and then it was also...
How old were you?
I was about 8. And then, or maybe 7.
Okay.
And so he had a big peach in his hand, And he turned to me and says, would you like this peach? They had a lot of orchards there. And would you like this peach? And I said, yeah. He says, well, how about letting me feel you? And then I said, take me back right away. And I got off of that buggy. That was one bad experience. I've had a couple in my lifetime, too. All right.
Now, your father at one point married a woman named Jenny.
Yeah. Oh, that's going great. Way ahead of Mrs. Schraggy.
Okay, tell us about Mrs. Schraggy and living there.
Mrs. Schraggy, eventually my father took us from that home, and the next home we found was Mrs. Schraggy. And she was a wonderful lady who had a boarding house with boarders in it. None of those boarders ever had tried anything. We went to dances there, little dances in the country, and that was in OL, Maryland. And so eventually we moved back to Baltimore, and they treated us very well, all four of us, that lady. And so her husband died, and that put us free again for Papa to find a place for us. And so then that's when he advertised for a woman to take care of us, and he was out of town at the time, and we children were all in the house, and this woman came to the door, long, beautiful hair, young. She'd been a graduate from Johns Hopkins University, and she came in, and we were so glad to see a lady. And she came in, she cleaned up our house. She was already making jelly by the time my father came in, and he hired her. And so she was with us, and in the course of time, he married her. But that's another story and another.
Was she Jewish?
No, she wasn't. But before she married my father, she became Jewish. Knew all the things about Jewish home life and everything, and she took over. And she raised me till I was 15.
Well, did she have any other children with your father?
Yes, she did. She had 3 children. 2 boys and a girl.
And what were their names?
Reba, David, and Avie. And there was a lot that went on there. They were sent away, and my father, then the bad times came. There was depression. There's an awful lot that would happen in between them.
Wasn't there a fire?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I had already been away to Baltimore and had saved my money to buy clothes with, and I was working in the dime store. And when I came back, there was just like a wooden house that my father had found. This was Depression days now, where you couldn't even find in Miami very much of anything. And the house that he was in burnt down with all of my clothes, all my new things that I had, and that was the beginning of kind of bad times.
And where did you have to go to get some clothes?
Oh, we went to the Red Cross, believe it or not, and they helped us out. So I've always been really fond of that Red Cross. They let us pick whatever we wanted, and we did. And I was still working, so I had to have some work clothes.
And where were you working?
I was working at Richards, not Richards, no, it was Cormier Cassell's at that time.
And what was your salary?
It was actually, I think, about $12. For that, I had already been working in a dime store for $10 a week. And now it was like 12, and it went up like to 14 and 16.
So you started working at age 12?
No,
about?
Well, actually, age 12, it was in, should I say Color Town?
No.
In the town, well, in the black area is what we were. It was either the white or the black area at the time. So I worked in a children's shop, and I was fitting children's shoes at 12 years old.
My goodness. And so what happened to the marriage of your father and Jenny?
Well, they were married for quite a few years, but they had sent their children away to, there's so much more in there, where we had gone to Jacksonville.
Okay. Well, did they send their children to foster homes?
No, it wasn't exactly a foster home. It was a Jewish home, because money was just not available. My stepmother was getting along on $1 a day and making soup from her bones, and it was that hard. And my father at one time had plenty.
And didn't she get her hair caught in a wringer washing machine?
That was when we were first, when we were first had her. And we had her for a while, and then she wanted to go visit her brother, who lived in some part of Maryland. We were all living in Baltimore at the time. And so she left, and we wondered why she didn't come back. We cried for her. And then one day, she was at our door again, but she had accidentally put her head to light a fire in the stove, and it blew up on her. And she had this long, beautiful hair that was all shaved off, and she was burnt like in the neck and the face. It was really very bad.
It wasn't a Ringer washing machine then?
No.
I got wrong information.
No, it was a black, one of those black stoves that you put the kerosene in.
Oh.
And she leaned over, and it kerosene, and put a match on it.
Oh, my God.
That was a sad experience. So then she came back, and from then on, my father decided he would go to Atlantic City. He had money then. He bought a hotel with another man. And the man, we stayed there 6 months, and I was going to school there, and the man just went off with all the money. So now my father has been hearing about Miami. Miami, you got to come to Miami. So he decided he picked all places.
Keep talking.
He
I'll let her in.
decided
Keep talking.
to go to Miami. So he picked us, all 4 girls, up in his car with the stepmother, which he married before he left for Miami. And we came down in Miami in 1926. 1925, pardon me, 25. We were here for the hurricane of 1926. And when we came, there was nothing but groves here and little shacks to live in. It was very, very primitive.
Was your father still married to Jenny at that time?
Yeah, he married her before we came down. You missed that one exactly. And so that's the story of our beginning here in Miami.
Well, I wanted to hear about when your father and Jenny got divorced. Did Jenny continue to be Jewish?
No, she didn't. She had met a man, and he was a drunkard, really. And he was boarding him out, since all of his children were out of the house already. He was boarding with Jenny and my father, and Jenny fell for him. And he convinced her, why are you playing Jewish when you're such a Gentile, when you're such a Christian woman? And so she left my father, she divorced him, and she married this Mr. Bunn.
And didn't your 2 brothers and sisters change their name? I understand that Abraham became Jim Bunn, and Rebecca became Betty Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And David, I believe, remained David. And isn't it true that Jim became a minister?
Right, and he had 2 sons, and I haven't seen much of them since they grew up. But there's a great deal more to say, and we'll go back there in a little bit. This is enough now.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Here's the tax book. And this chair looks empty without Dad in it.
Don't tie.
No, you don't have to do that. Just bring it down. I think you should just button it.
Huh?
I thought you were going to have one that blue shirt on instead.
I know. I can't.
It doesn't look right here, honey. Just straighten it out. No, just be natural,
That's
Dad.
it. Oh, telephone. Mr. Mayor's office. Okay.
Hello. Is this Bill Cliff? What's his name?
Bill. The president.
Clinton? Put him on the phone right now. Tell him Gene's calling.
That's good.
All right, go ahead, Vanessa.
Did you get that?
Yes. Dad, one of the things, this is Dad, this is my father, Eugene Mayers. He's 86 years old, born, when's your birthday?
September 9th, 1909.
1909, okay.
The operator's talking.
Well, Dad, you can't do that and do this, too.
One of the things I wanted to ask you something. would you do anything different if you had your life to live over again?
I sure would.
What would that be?
Well, I definitely would put my hand on the right-hand side instead of the left.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about your life? Like for instance, I know you started working at age 5, delivering groceries for your parents.
We'll start at the beginning.
Okay.
I was born September 9th, 1908.
Oh, was it 8?
In Paris, France. I came over to the United States, got seasick. When I was 2 months old, arrived in New York City in December 1908. We stayed in New York for a couple of weeks. And then we went to Montgomery, Alabama, where we had relatives.
Should come over a little closer.
No, it's okay. Action.
You want me to be talking on the phone?
Yeah, that'd be cute. Good.
You got it?
Uh-huh.
Hello, White House. Hillary talking? Hillary, put Bill on the phone. Tell him it's Gene Mayers. He'll answer. Okay.
That's great. That is so funny. Okay, now let's see. What should we talk about?
Well, do you want to say that whole thing over again, or what?
Okay, and you know what? Just to be absolutely certain, I would love to just make sure this is actually working before. So should I take up? Should we put it in what we've done so far?
Whatever you want to do.
And see. All right. Well, tell us a little bit then. You came to you. Go ahead.
I was born September 9th, 1908, in Paris, France. I decided to come to the United States. So in December 1908, I booked passage on a ship to New York. I arrived there in December 1908. It was too cold for me. So I went to Montgomery, Alabama, in the South, where it was warm. And that's the start of my life. I went to a school, walked 10 blocks through the mud and rain when I was 6 years old. I registered, and Miss, I can't remember her name. Something's wrong with my memory. That was in 1914. I went through, we had a grocery store about 20 blocks away. I used to walk each morning 20 blocks to school. Nobody attempted to mug me. Everything was fine.
And I understand you used to work in your parents' grocery store.
Yes, when I was about 8 or 9, I used to deliver groceries. I had a skate, one skate. Took it apart with a long board, put the front end on one end, the back on another, and nailed a box onto the board. In there I put the groceries and scooted to wherever I had to go and deliver the groceries. I got 25 cents a week. By being very conservative, I saved $10, which, when the milkman came, we needed the money, so they borrowed it from me. It's now 1994, and I've never received it back.
Wait, how
Plus
about
interest.
how about being bar mitzvah? Tell about it. Being bar mitzvah.
Oh, and I asked me exactly.
Okay. Well, first of all, I wanted Wait, there was a couple questions I wanted to ask.
See, I told you to write them.
Yeah. Okay, well, so tell us about your bar mitzvah. Did you have a big affair?
Yes, I did. We got bar mitzvah in the synagogue on Monroe Street. There was about 50 people in the audience. I gave a speech, and my Uncle Jake got mad because he had to sit upstairs.
Well, why did he sit upstairs?
Sure.
Yeah.
So he had to sit upstairs. So I had a borrowed coat that I got bar mitzvah in. I got one present, a shirt, blue shirt, first one I've had, and I use that for Sunday only.
And you still have that shirt, don't you?
I probably have, but I think your mom wouldn't show the buttons. The buttons came off and she wouldn't put them back on.
I understand that you came over here, came to Miami when you were 17, and you were with your brother Oscar, and you were delivering telegrams
I came
on a
here
bicycle.
when I was 16.
16.
When I graduated from high school at 16. I came to Miami. I heard there was a big real estate boom here, and they were hiring everybody at $50 a week, which was outrageous. So I came at 16. I couldn't get a job. Had no experience, so they wouldn't hire me. Then I got a job at Western Union delivering telegrams. And I used to, in those days, there was only one or two real estate agents that tipped. Nobody else tipped. So I had to wait. I wanted to make sure I got those telegrams to that real estate agent because he gave 25-cent tips. Whereas others, if they gave a nickel, it was good.
And I understand you depended on those tips to eat. If you didn't get tips, you didn't eat.
I ate lunch. I wanted to go before lunch to this place so I could get money to eat lunch. And that's
Bad times, don't you?
And I remember, wasn't there a time when you were going to, you used to go to the movies, it was a nickel to see a movie.
Yes.
And what happened when it went up to 6 cents?
Every Sunday, Oscar and I used to go to the movies, the Strand Theater.
That wasn't Miami then. That was
This was in Montgomery.
Montgomery.
And the admission was 5 cents, and we had to sit through. The orchestra had to play classical music for about 20 minutes before William S. Hart, the famous cowboy, got on. So we went every Sunday. That's the only time we could go. And then we went one time, and it said 6 cents. We only had a nickel each. So we went 2 or 3 blocks away where the Montgomery Bakery was. Mr. Finkelstein. He knew us. We wanted to borrow 2 cents from him, and we would pay him when he delivered the bread. He questioned us about 20 minutes, finally gave us the 2 cents. We went to the movies. Then our family had to decide whether we would go anymore. It's too high. 6 cents. The 5 cents was all right. 6 cents.
Dad, you always say it was Depression time or something.
Stop it a while.
Okay, let's
But Dad, get on to after.
wait, the date isn't working, so I just want to let you know it's September 27th, 1994. Okay, about your parents.
Well, my father was an Austrian.
And your mother?
My mother was Romanian. They married in Austria. Then they went to Paris to live. That's where I was born. But we left for the United States from there. My father died on my birthday when I was 1 year old.
Keep looking at the camera.
And
Look at the camera there.
my mother lived till she was
80.
80 years old.
But in between.
But she remarried.
Yeah. She remarried when she was about 4 years after my father's death.
But there was you and your brother Oscar when she
Brother
married.
Oscar and me were children of the first
Marriage.
Right. And Oscar was 2 years older than you.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And then the first child from the second marriage was my sister Sarah. I'm 4 years older than she is. Then later on, my brother Isidore was born. And I'm 10 years older than he. He's deceased now.
And so is Sarah.
Yeah. Well, how come that? My youngest brother died just recently. And I'm one of 5 children, the last one left.
Right. And your youngest brother's name was Nathan.
Nathan.
Yeah.
Nathan was my brother, yeah. And
And how many years older than him were you?
I'm 10 years older than Nathan was.
I thought you said Isidore.
15 years
Oh.
older than Nathan. See how my mind's slipping?
Well, you got a lot on your mind.
What else?
Okay. So,
Well, when I got to, after I worked at Western Union for a while, I saw an ad in the paper. Swift and Company was advertising for all kinds of help. They didn't specify what.
But tell what Swift and Company is. Meat packing place.
Well, everybody knows it.
I don't know.
yeah, but maybe not 50 years from now, they might not know.
It's a meat packing company. So a friend of ours that lived in the tourist camp where we live was going down to Louis Chitty Wholesale Grocers. That's where he worked. So he told me he'd drive me to town. So I came down with him. And when he stopped, I noticed that Swift and Company was in the next block. So I decided to go up there and ask him. Since I saw that ad in the paper, I went up there and I asked the young fellow at the cashier's gate. He said, well, what kind of work do you do? I said, I don't know, I'll do anything. He said, well, you're kind of small, it's hard to lift these hindquarters of beef, to load these trucks. So maybe you better wait till the office manager come in. He'll be in about 15, 20 minutes and talk to him. So I waited, and Mr. Hale came in. I never did bookkeeping in my life. I took 1 year in high school of bookkeeping, and he asked me, can you add figures? I said, yeah, I'm good at arithmetic. He said, well, write your name and address here. I wrote it, and at that time I wrote a very beautiful hand.
You still do.
And he saw that.
Yeah.
He said, well, will you work for this? And he wrote down $25. I said, yeah. He said, when can you start? I said, right now. And so he gave me the job of lining up tickets. Tickets were numbered. We had to count for every ticket. So I had to line them up every day and book them in books by the day. We ran about 1,000 tickets a day. So after a while, the clerk that verified the multiplication on the tickets quit. So Hale asked me, see if you can do it. I said, well, show me how to work this comptometer. They showed me 5 minutes. So I verified every one of those tickets. He went over them later and saw where I made some changes. Said, you could not erase at that company. You had to draw lines through it and rewrite it.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw where I changed quite a few, so I must have found errors. And he couldn't find an error that I had passed up. So he was satisfied. Then I worked on that job for
17 years.
No, for quite a while. Then I was promoted
Yeah.
as a biff clerk.
Yeah, this. What's that?
That's where we accounted for every pound of all kinds of meat and kept it separate to figure the profits on, say, pork loins, pork hams, smoked hams, bacon, beef, lamb, veal. We figured all that separate. So I had to biff it
It's a great big thing.
so that they can work on it.
Uh-huh.
Later I was promoted to the FOB clerk. If a packing house man heard this, an old-time packing house, he would know what I'm talking about. I know you don't know.
What does that stand for?
Freight on delivery?
Freight on board.
Freight on? I knew it was a freight on.
So I got promoted to that. Then we made out C9s, that's inventory, 2419s, that's figuring the profit on each item on the form, and the 1769 form as big as your head. And I did a good job on that, and all they did was praise me.
Yeah, but $1 didn't come in more.
But every year I got a $2 or $3 raise.
To $40.
Yeah, and I worked there in the packing houses for 18 years. Then my brother Oscar and Murray Dahm went into the wholesale meat business to sell restaurants. So I quit Swift and went to work for them. They gave me
Right in between work.
$50 a week. So I took the job. Then I decided as long as I'm in bookkeeping, I should go to the top of it. I wanted to be a CPA. So I told Morris Furman, the CPA, that I'm going to take the examination and pass. He said, you think you're going to pass? I said, yes.
But how are you going to pass it? First you have to study for it.
So
You had to study
he
for it.
said, well, you got to work for a CPA for 3 years before you can even take the examination. So I went down to Pentland, Purvis, Keller, and Company. I met Mr. Pentland in the hall, told him that I wanted a job and that I had worked for Swift. He said, well, that's fine. I know you got good experience because I worked for Armour.
Armour is another meat packing company, Joan.
Another meat packer. So, he said, go in and see Mr. Herb.
Yeah, I
His
remember all
first
these.
name was Eugene. So I went in and introduced myself as Eugene Mayers. He said, well, my name's Eugene. He said, well, you got a good name. So he hired me, and I started out in the public accounting business.
Yeah, but you have to
And I worked for them for 6 years.
stop it for just a minute, Joan. Daddy, you have to say how you became the CPA.
I'm telling you
You
that.
had to study at night.
I'm coming to it. I'm still working for Pendleton.
Yeah, all right. Did you turn it off and on?
No.
So, did you record all that?
Yes.
I'm getting these foolish questions from my wife sitting right over there.
Let's put the camera in it.
Here, we'll just...
No.
No makeup on today.
That's the one I'm talking about. I didn't recognize it without makeup. So, after I got mine, I worked for them for 6 years. Then I applied to take the examination. I took it and eventually passed.
How many times?
Twice. And eventually passed. And then there was an account they wanted me to audit, which I didn't like it at all. So,
Well, wait a minute, didn't you study many years through the mail before you became a CPA?
yeah, I took a correspondence course.
Am I getting ahead of it?
No, that's not.
And I got the equivalent of a college education.
And how many years did it take to get that?
Well, I was working for
Yeah.
for
5
6
years.
No, when I started it when I worked for Swift.
Yeah, 5 years you took off.
So I studied after work, mostly between 11 and 12 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I took all the college books that they used to teach that course.
This was the LaSalle course.
Yeah. Business, no. I took this LaSalle course. Then I got the college books that the University of Miami taught to get a Bachelor of Business Administration. And I studied that, everything through there. And I had that background in order to take the examination. I eventually passed it. Then I decided, I asked my wife, said, no, really. Could she get along on $50 a week?
Uh-huh.
She said, yes, that's a lot. So I quit the job and went in for myself. I had 2 or 3 accounts. And then some of the accounts that I worked on for Pentland wanted to come to me. So I cleared it with Pentland Purvis. That'd be all right. And they said, fine, just charge them enough. So I started out and I gradually got one account, and they referred me to others. I got others.
We were counting them on our fingers how many when it got
Finally,
to
I got a pretty good business. And my wife sitting over there said, well, isn't there something I can do? I said, well, can you add? She said, yes. 1 and 1 is 3. So I said, okay.
And I started in with them.
So,
And so she became an accountant and worked with you side by side.
yeah,
For 40
I
years.
oversaw her bookkeeping, children, until she thought now, that she knew more than I did.
But she wouldn't take the exam.
She couldn't take the exam. Because
No. It was
you
only
got to
high.
have certain
I wasn't high school.
degrees. Okay.
And isn't it amazing that Mother became an accountant with only a 9th grade education? That's amazing.
Well, you don't want to let everybody know.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yes, but it's something to be proud of.
Okay, later on, I had some help in the office, and then I finally hired my oldest daughter, Joan. We put her to work.
Yeah.
How many years?
Well, I haven't figured about it. So total on and off was like 17 years, starting from when I was 16 and then back after I had Todd and all.
So, now that I've decided to retire,
Now, you know you're never going to retire. Not really.
I've got
Well,
to
you can
continue
show
to make
now.
income. Now, wait a minute.
Oh, you want to hold that up. Hold up.
Now, wait, you're going to ask me.
What is that?
Oh, just a minute. You got it on?
Yeah.
I'd ask me some questions.
Oh, well,
How long he worked? how long he's been a CPA.
I understood that when you were working for Swift and Company, one of the reasons that they wouldn't promote you was because you were Jewish. Was there any anti-Semitism there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Plenty.
It wasn't from the big officials in Chicago. It was the local people.
The small officials in the place.
In this town at that time, there was a lot of anti-Semitism. That's why I couldn't even get a job. As soon as I mentioned my name...
Marovitz, don't
Yeah.
forget.
Oh, your name was Marovitz, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Eugene Marovitz.
So
when he married me, he
no,
changed.
I changed my name before I married you.
You met him as Eugene Mayers, didn't
I
you?
changed
No.
it by law in the courthouse, and then I had it double changed when I took out my citizenship papers.
Yeah, but I thought, yeah, but it was when we got married.
I got my citizenship papers because I married a citizen. Although I had lived here longer than she had.
But didn't somebody tell you that, come right out and say to you because you were Jewish you weren't going to get promoted?
No.
They never said that? You just knew
I
it?
had one that resented me and asked why they hired me because I was Jewish. I said, because he's good. That same person came to me when I was a CPA to do his accounting, his personal accounting. And that's the way he overpaid his income tax $100,000.
Yeah, that's true.
And I got it back for him.
Wow.
Wait, now let's get to this thing here.
Wait, I have one more thing. I remember Shorty's barbecue is very famous here in town, and I understand you used to work with Shorty, and he used to load the truck for $12 a week.
Yeah.
And he told you one day that tell us about that. He was going to open up a barbecue place way out in the wilderness there.
He opened this Shorty Allen. He was a good friend of mine. I made out his personal return one year, and he said, well, how much I owe you? I said, nothing. I said, someday you'll pay me back. So eventually he opened a barbecue restaurant called Shorty's. Became famous, made a lot of money. I did his bookkeeping from the beginning.
Did he ever pay you back the money for doing the tax return?
Oh, not, he always paid that.
No, we charged him
No.
an accounting fee,
Uh-huh.
which your mom did the accounting.
The writing of the checks and things.
And I think you did later, didn't you, Joan?
I did some too.
And then Joan did the accounting.
Yeah.
Joan also did a big account called Central Stationery.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 10 pages.
Max Orange.
Yeah, there we
10
go.
And
pages.
she used to work on that, and that was a terrific
That was a
job.
big one. By hand. Everything we did was by hand.
Yeah.
Huh.
We didn't have a machine particularly.
But by that time, we had a few accounts that we got $1,000 a month for. And we had others that we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 500 a month. So we worked up a very good business. Then we decided to taper off. So we got rid of all the accounts that were giving us headaches and that we couldn't make money off of anyhow. But we had so many friends and relatives that we had to do for nothing. Which we still do.
Yeah.
Wait a second. Getting back to Shorty for a moment. When he told you about his idea of opening a barbecue way out on a dirt road, what'd you say?
Way out in the woods. And who's going to drive that far to get a barbecue? He said, well, I'm going to try it. He had a partner.
Uh-huh. Shorty and Stan, it used to be, I remember.
Yeah.
I'm getting hungry.
So
Okay.
he finally bought out the partner for $6,000.
God.
His income now is very much.
Not very, very
I won't
much.
say. And he's in the real estate field.
All right,
Okay.
we're going to
Wait,
end
all
this
right,
right
so,
now.
we're gonna take a break now, so
No,
we can.
no, I want to get you that thing in right now.
Oh,
So, Dad, actually, how, what is that you're
I want to
holding?
say, what organizations did I belong?
oh, what organizations did you belong to?
Well, I was a member of the American Institute of Accountants, That's all over the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And the Florida Institute of Certified Public Accountants, that's in Florida.
Show the picture of it, Daddy.
Now, just a minute. After 40 years, they made me an honorary lifetime membership. I don't have to pay any more dues. And here they are. Can you see it?
Yeah.
I want to get up closer.
I'm gonna. Let me just
This
zoom
is
it
the
in.
American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. This is the Florida Institute of Certified Public Accountants.
I'm zooming it in. Certified public accountant. Lifetime membership. Wow, that's something really to be proud of.
You never even showed when you first got your CPA thing. We don't even know where that is.
Certificate
It is inside there. But there's still a lot about getting married and having children.
Is that all?
Well, no. Should we take a break and then come back to that?
No, I don't think we should do any more today.
The American Institute of Accountants.
Yeah, just take a... You don't have to move the camera.
I was going to just kind of zero in a little. That's great. Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, don't look at college, remember.
I know.
Here's the Florida Institute of Accountants.
Florida Institute.
We don't even keep them up a lot. I got them up somewhere.
Okay, got it.
You got it?
Uh-huh.
And this is my CPA certificate issued July 25th, 1950. This is when they issued my certificate. 1950.
4 years ago, Daddy. I don't have any certificates.
But you could get them. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay.
You got it?
Uh-huh. Got it.
Well, you can shut it off.
All right.
Very good, Johnny.
October 3rd, 1994. And we're continuing talking to my father, Eugene Mayers. Okay.
You might think my voice is very raspy, but the reason for that is I had surgery removing a tumor from my chest, which was close to my vocal cords. And they had to stretch them to get the tumor out. The tumor was as big as an orange, or maybe an apple. So, and they're supposed to go back together. But it's been 2 or 3 years now, and it hasn't. And the doctor says I could fix it by major surgery. Well, I don't want major surgery, because I don't need my voice, except for things like this.
And it sounds pretty good today. Yeah. It really does. Well, you know what? I wanted to ask you about, well, first of all, how did you meet Mother, your wife?
Is that still on?
Mm-hmm.
Well, my sister moved down here. She was engaged. And her fiancé was coming down with his brother. Mm-hmm. And so they wanted to double date. So my sister Sarah went to Chroma Cassell's department store and asked Harold Chroma, who's a friend of the family, does he know some nice Jewish girl to date Neil Saracen's brother. I said, yeah, she's right over there in that booth with the pajamas on. Well, let's go ask her. So they went and asked her. She said, yes, she'd double date since Harold recommended him. So they double dated. And that way, Celia, my wife, now, came over to the house after that to be friends with Sarah, my sister. And then I came in pretty late from work, and she said, who is that fellow? And my mother said, well, that's my son. She said, how old is he? I said, 22. She said, I'd like to meet him. So she came, I was reading the paper in a chair like I always do now. And she came over and said, now let's talk. I said, about what? I said, I'm reading the paper here. So we talked a little about the weather and things like that. And then it's time for her to go home. So I said, I'll walk you home. So I did. And I walked her home, which was about 4 or 5 blocks from here. It was dark. And then we walked up on the porch, and she said, well, I'll say good night. I said, well, good night. I'll see you some other time, maybe. She said, well, that's not the way to say good night. You have to kiss. And I never kissed anybody in my life, not even my mother. So she had to show me how. And so I kissed. I didn't see nothing to it. Why it meant so much to so many people. And so that's how we met, because she came over to our house several times to see Sarah, my sister. And I happened to come in while I was there, and we met a little that way, and then she did all the suggesting. Let's go to a movie. I said, well, what movie you like? Well, we decided to go to the Tivoli, which was in walking distance of the house. So we'd go to the movie, and then we'd walk back, and I'd walk her home, and we'd say good night. She said, you forgot. And that's the way it was.
I'll stand up. It's easy. And so you went together, I understand, 5.5 years before you got married?
Off and on.
Yeah.
There was no such thing as a steady boyfriend in those days. You go with whoever asked you. And she wanted to go out every night. So whoever asked her, she went out with.
And what made you decide to get married?
Well, I said, I'm wasting time here. I'm going to have to marry somebody someday. So she was getting ready to go to Baltimore. I said, well, I'll tell you what you do. When you go to Baltimore, you look up a rabbi and get in touch with me. And I'm going on my vacation. So I'll come to Baltimore, we'll get married, and then go on to New York. That was it.
And I understand you had to send her the money for the license was $2 in those days?
Yeah, well, I sent her the money anyhow. And she needed money for all her sisters. They all claimed they needed it. Her sister...
She had 3 sisters, Mary, Dorothy, and Sylvia.
Her sister Dorothy, I don't know whether she had to get a divorce. So she had to get a divorce a long time before that and needed $20 for the lawyer. That's what it cost to get a divorce. $520. And that's what happened. We went to New York, and we went to the World's Fair. Have I already told you
No.
about that? We went to the World's Fair,
And what year was this?
1936. We registered at New York Hotel. There was no air conditioning in those days.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hot. The hottest days of the year we happened to be there. We went to the World's Fair and we saw the Hot Makata show. It was a hit on Broadway at the time.
Mm.
But this was in with black players, and they played all the parts of the Hot Makata. We saw that, and we went to the Billy Rose water show in the pool, and we saw, see, that's when I wanted to write this down ahead of time. We saw the most famous woman swimmer of the day, who was married to Billy Rose. You remember her?
I heard of her. I forgot her name though.
Well, if I think of her later, I'll tell you. Well, we went to that water show there, and in the at the fair.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that, and we walked around and saw all the various shows and things there. It was something good to see. Then we went back to the hotel. We went out on the subway. The subway went right into the fair. And so then we went out later and was walking down 7th Avenue, and we see the show that says Fiddler on the Roof. I said, you can't get a ticket to that to save your life. Because people had to get it months ahead of time. I said, I'll go over and see. She went over and asked the guy at the window. He said, no, all tickets are sold out, but sometimes we have cancellations. So if you hang around and we have a cancellation, you got it. So we waited until about 15 minutes before the show. They had a cancellation, and we bought it. And we went in, and it happened to be the best seats in the house. It was on the aisle, midway. Not too far back, not too close. And we saw that show, The Fiddler on the Roof.
Isn't that great? Now, Mother had mentioned that you saw TV for the first time at the World's Fair. Television?
Yeah, at the World's Fair, television was just invented. But they couldn't send it from city to city because they only had it right there in New York. And say they didn't have it in New Jersey where they could send it. So they filmed it just to show us how it worked. And we were in the crowd, and they focused the camera all around, and they got to us. We were the handsomest couple in the audience.
Uh-huh.
And they left it on us and pictured it. And we saw ourselves in the camera in very good pictures. So that was the first of the TV.
And did you ever think that, someday you'd be glued to it, watching it?
No, I never thought it would be a success.
Yeah.
Because it cost too much
Mm-hmm.
to send it from
Mm-hmm.
city to city.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, we got the underground wire
Mm-hmm.
that they could send it through. There was no hindrance, so it went straight
Mm-hmm.
through. And that's how television started.
Right. As I remember when we got our first TV, I remember telling you that everyone has a TV but us. No, I said to you, everybody has a TV, and you said not everybody because we don't. But then when we finally got our TV, I remember I was 10 years old, so that was in 1951. We got a 17-inch where everybody else only had a 10-inch. This was like the biggest screen they made, so we had the nicest TV when we first got one, and there was one channel, Channel 4.
And we used to watch it, and we watched
Milton Berle's Texaco Star Theater.
well, I didn't know who Milton Berle was, to tell you the truth. So I didn't watch him. We watched, what's this piano player?
Victor Borga?
No.
Liberace?
Liberace.
Uh-huh.
He was on for 15 minutes every day.
Oh.
So we watched him. And Bing Crosby was on 15 minutes every day. And on Sundays was Eddie Cantor. We watched him. And Bob Hope came on later. And I didn't know who he was.
But there was only one channel in those days. Did you ever dream there'd be so many channels?
No.
But
So
anyway,
that was the start. And
but what I wanted to ask you was, you have a story to tell about what happened when there was the war. Was it World War I?
World War II.
World War II. What happened that you didn't have to go to the war?
Well, when World War II was on, we had a babysitter sitting with Joan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's pull this down a little bit. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's good.
And so it was announced over the radio, and we told the babysitter what had happened. She was surprised that she was sitting with Joan. And then we heard how my brother, Izzy, was in the paratroops at the time. And they told him he was on leave. So they told him to have his uniform available, as they might call it. And so they started drafting him. They drafted single persons first.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good picture?
Yeah, that's good.
And then they took the married second. And then they took the married with one child third, with two child fourth, and so on. So it got down to where they were calling the married with one child. So they sent me a letter to come down for examination, which I did. And I told my employers, who was Pendleton, Purvis, Keller and Company, at that time they were doing audits for war producing things for the Army, which was Alexander Orr, Plumbing Company. So I was auditing them. So I was called, I went down, I told my employers I had to go, see what they're going to do. I went down, and they took all the information, said, well, the bus will be here at a certain time, we'll load you up in the bus, and you had to go to Jacksonville. So, all right, so we waited, and then all of a sudden they had a telephone call for me. Told me to go to the phone. I answered the phone. It was my boss. He said, come on back, we got you deferred because you're doing government work. And so I didn't have to go at that time. Well, before all of that, I had applied to enlist. But I wanted to go to officers' training camp because I had a family, and the privates only got $20 a month, and I couldn't live on that with a family. So I wanted to go to officers' training camp because they got $120 a month, an officer. So I wrote to them, and they wrote me back that I was, let's see, I was either too old or too young for the training camp. They couldn't take me. They only could take me in as a private. Well, I didn't enlist. But later I was drafted, like I was telling you, and nearly had to go.
That was a close call. Wow. Well, I just wanted to ask you a couple questions, like what would you say is the secret of your 58-year marriage? That you're still married after 58 years and so happy.
Well, the thing, the husband has to assert himself. He has to be boss. You might talk it over with your wife, knowing you're going to decide what you thought anyhow. So everything I passed on was my idea. And your mother couldn't say anything about it.
So that's the secret of a happy 58-year marriage.
Well, in those days, people didn't divorce anyhow. But we got along because we were in the same line of business, and we thought the same way, and we liked to go to movies once a week.
But when was the last time you went to a movie?
Oh, it's been 20 years now. And so the movies now are not like they were in those days. They were tremendous in those days.
What was your favorite movie that you saw?
Well, the famous serious movie was The Trial of Mary Dugan. She was tried for murder.
Oh, who was in that? Anybody we know?
Yeah. I know her name, but I can't think of it. But anyhow, I've seen others too who were good. But then I like all musicals.
Mm-hmm.
And in those days we had the Follies of 1937, then the Follies of 1938, and 39,
mm-hmm.
and they all had the best musicals. And they were out of this world. They don't produce them that way now.
No, they don't.
And any picture with Fred Astaire, Bing Crosby, I would want to see. And also, my favorite other was, can you turn it off while I think?
You can think while it's on, huh?
Wait a minute. See, I can't.
Okay, I wanted to ask you another question. So what is your philosophy of life?
Well, there's no philosophy exactly. It's just you get along with people, especially your friends, and you do everything in the world for them. And they're so happy they got you as a friend because I can do things for them. And then later on, when it got so I can't do any more for them, and maybe they could do something for me, they disappeared. I never heard from them anymore. So, my philosophy of life is just to do right in the first place. And in other words, don't do anybody any good, but don't do them any harm either. And if you say anything about anybody, don't say anything bad. Just the good things. There's always something good you can tell them. And that's it.
Oh, well, isn't there something else you'd like to add? We should. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to turn off. You you can leave and Dad can talk the whole time on the tape by himself.
That's neat. And how do you stop the record?
Oh, you had it on record?
Uh-huh.
Oh, you shouldn't have.
How do you stop recording?
Okay, it's October the 4th, 1994. This is Joan Mayers. We're talking with my father, Eugene Mayers. Okay, we want to ask a...
Oh, wait. Let me answer a question
Okay.
that went unanswered previously. My favorite movie actor was William Haynes, and he was the suave type, you know, half comedy, half serious, and so on.
Right. Okay. Well, we would like to hear your views on money. As far as how to invest it, or just what we should do with it.
Well, it's good to have money,
Uh-huh.
I'll tell you that, because I know what it is not to have money, and we never were rich, but we made a living. I've always believed that you should save a certain amount until you get what you call your retirement fund. And then you can splurge on that and buy luxuries. But first you should get that and invest it. That investment would bring you in more money. In other words, you can work with your own hands and you can only make a certain amount. But if you put your money to work, you can earn quite a bit.
And how do you think we should invest our money? What's the best investment?
Well, you could invest it in stocks, but you have to, don't go by what these authorities tell you. Let them, if they tell you it's a certain stock is good, look it up in Standard & Poor, and they give you the whole history. And a company that does know when a long-term debt is good, because that money that they would have to pay out in debt, they could pay dividends to you with. So don't speculate. Even if somebody, for instance, my broker one time called me and said, "Oh, I hear that this company's going to buy this one. You better buy it." I bought it. But it turned out everybody in the world knew about it, because that was the rumor, all the brokers. So it was just a rumor to get the stock to go up, and they sold it to us, and when we sold it, we lost.
Well, what was I going to ask you? So when you said to have a certain amount for retirement, how much is a good amount?
You got to, if you're making X dollars, you got to figure so much of that is going to be put away in a savings account even for retirement. And just like you're paying rent, put it in there definitely. Now if your income goes down, try to put the same amount in if you can. But if you can't, always save something.
And I know you always felt that you shouldn't buy anything on credit and pay interest. That if you first of all, you shouldn't buy anything you don't need, and then you should only pay cash. Isn't that correct?
Well, if it's a small item, like a house, you cannot pay cash
Right.
ordinarily. Or some people can't pay cash for an automobile. But my first automobile, we bought on terms, and when I figured up the interest I'm paying, it cost me double. So the car costs quite a bit. And especially if you take that money out of savings and buy a car, you bought something that it is not bringing you any income. So the cost of running that car, in addition to gas, oil, license, and insurance, would be the money you lost as interest by taking it out to pay cash. So there's some argument against paying cash also.
Depending on what the interest rate is.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So anything else you want to tell us about money or investments?
Well, can you cut it off a sec?
Okay.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
If you're on a salary, say $20, and you save 10, the result is happiness. If you earn $20 and spent 30, the result is unhappiness.
Very good. But I know that you also favored CDs as opposed to mutual funds or investments.
CDs are the safest investment, although you don't get as much return. We did for a spell here where we had a boom, but not anymore. The CDs doesn't pay enough to, if you're young, you can take a chance on something else. Because if you lose it, you'll say, well, I'll do something else. But when you get older, don't take a chance. Take less interest as long as it's saved.
And you used to feel that you should have the money should be available if you needed it. That's why you like CDs too,
Yeah.
right?
Well, CDs, you could cash in a CD ahead of time. You lose a little by it, but at least you got that money.
Mm-hmm.
Say for a serious illness,
Mm-hmm.
you needed money, you can always get it. But if you bought real estate or stocks, you can't cash it right away. It's what they call not liquid.
Mm-hmm.
They have to have liquid assets.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Does that cover everything on money?
Yeah.
All right. What are your views on religion and being Jewish or God and God?
Well, religion, I believe everybody should have a religion. Because when you start to figure out the people on this earth, how they have a heart, they have blood circulation, they have hearing, they have legs to walk. Men are made different than women so they can produce children. Something had to do that. It didn't just happen. So there is a God, so-called God, whether you believe in one God or if you believe in idols, even. As long as you believe something did it. Because they say that if you went on an uninhabited island and you found a watch, it was in good condition and running, you know somebody's been there and somebody left that watch. It didn't just happen.
That's good. Well, how do you feel about being Jewish?
Well, being Jewish, it just so happened my family was Jewish. And usually the children follow the family and whatever religion they are. So whether I was Catholic or Jewish or anything doesn't matter. Religion counts.
But
And you don't have to go to church. You don't have to go to temple. You can be religious in your heart. You can sit in this chair where I'm sitting and pray just as well as if you was sitting in a synagogue. So I think going to synagogue is not necessary. It's just to show other people your religions. But you don't have to prove it to anybody. If you're religious yourself and prove it to yourself and do things that are religiously correct, that is, treat people right and don't hurt anybody, then that's religion.
how do you feel about marrying out of your religion?
I believe it's a bad thing because marriage is hard. It's two people out of different habits getting together, and no two people have the same habits or anything like that. So if you don't have the same religion, that's already one strike against you. and you only have 3 strikes, and you're out. So that's why I don't believe in marrying out of your religion or out of your race also. There's some very smart men who are black that would make good husbands. But sometimes something's going to come up where there's a difference. You're white, they're black, and you're going to have trouble. So it's best to avoid it.
Yeah. Okay. And so, and what are your? How do you feel about your children, having children, your children, your grandchildren?
Well, I should have some great grandchildren. Right now, I've only got 4 grandchildren, but they're all right because things that you didn't see when you're raising your own children, you see it now in your grandchildren, and you can do a better job.
Okay. And do you have any thing to say about teenagers?
Well, teenagers mostly are followers. You shouldn't be a follower. Be a leader. Let others follow you. Mm-hmm. Now, you can follow a certain person if they're doing something very good and follow that. But the bad things, because they wear jeans with holes in the knees, doesn't mean you got to do it.
Mm-hmm. And what about getting an earring?
And a male shouldn't have earrings. Even I think female shouldn't. Yeah. Because you're puncturing your body in doing it. And I see some of these football players with an earring hanging out. And somebody ought to have better sense. When you tackle somebody in the football, your hand might hit that earring and then rip your ear open, see? Because it's in there. You pull it out. That's foolish.
That's right.
Use your head. Be sensible.
Right. Oh, and you know what? I remember that you were an athlete for many years. Didn't you play handball?
Yes, I did.
For how many years?
40 or 50 years. And I got pretty good at it. Played 4-wall handball and used to beat 90% of the people. But it kept me in good physical condition. And I was in good shape. And I think the fact that I've lived to 86 years at this time was due to my build-up in those days.
Well, that was another question I was going to ask, was if you have any health tips.
Eat slow, Joe. Put a small piece in your mouth, chew it up, swallow it. Then put the second piece in, and so on till you're through eating. And always think about it, because you unconsciously keep feeding your mouth. You'll have your mouth full and you're chewing it, and after you chew it a little while, you'll put some more in your mouth. That's no good for your indigestion. You don't feel it right now, but 20 years from now, it has a big effect on you.
Well, this is advice. Uh-oh, wait a minute. The tape ended. So I have to do that about the health. The tape ended. Let me just see. You know what?
Well, you want to leave
I got other tapes. Hold on 1 second. See, that's why I kept looking in there, because I knew that it was going to come to an end. This is great because it tells you right away when it ends. It tells you everything. And what about other health tips?
Well,
talk about what you mean.
not your eating. You got to, you are what you eat. You got to eat good foods. I don't eat pork myself because I don't think it's good for me, but I do eat bacon and ham occasionally. And thing to do is get plenty of sleep, exercise, and eat properly.
And eat slow.
Uh,
And eat slow.
the proper eating is, regardless of what you're eating, just take a small piece in your mouth because you can digest it much better. Chew it and swallow it. Then put another piece in your mouth. Don't keep stuff in your mouth while you got a mouthful because there's a tendency to swallow it and not digest it. And that's bad for your health, and you'll notice it 20 years from now. You'll see.
Okay.
Now, getting back to that money part again, you should neither a borrower nor a lender be, for oft times it loses itself and friend. That means if you lend a person money, with all good intentions, he intends to pay it back. But if something comes up and you can't pay it back, then you're not like the bank that foreclose on it, so he won't pay you and he'll avoid you. You won't see him for a long time. So you can lend a person a small amount, for a short period of time, but don't be a lender or a borrower.
And I remember you told me a story once about somebody from the Y that you loaned a small amount of money to.
Yeah.
And
there was one fellow who used to go to the Y. He had a habit of borrowing from everybody. So he didn't come to me yet. So one night when I got to the Y, he came over to me, listen, can you lend me $1? I said, well, I don't have $1. I got a quarter. Will that help you? He said, yeah, lend me a quarter. So I lent him the quarter. Needless to say, he never paid it back, so he was embarrassed to ask me again to lend him money because he owed me money. But I got by with a small amount.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And Linda wanted to know if you wanted to talk about any interesting clients that you had.
Well, no, I've had some good clients and some bad ones. I had some that were very well known in this town, like a county commissioner. I had his account. And I had a lot of big people, when I left the firm that I worked for, came to me to do their work. And that's how I got started. And but I specialize mainly in small businesses that can't afford these very high CPA fees. And we did their bookkeeping and their tax work and advised them on investments. In fact, some of the people that I advised on investments are millionaires, whereas I just look at them and can't help.
Pretty good. And, Linda has down here dancing. Do you have anything to say about dancing?
Well, I could never learn how to dance. I used to go dancing with your mother, and whenever they played a slow waltz, I would dance, and she would say that I was good, but I wasn't, because I stepped on my feet and all that. Then when I go to a dance, I couldn't dance with others, because at least your mother knew how I danced and could follow me. But we went to quite a few dances, regardless of what people said.
Okay. Let's see. Linda has it. What about sex before marriage? You want to get into that, or you don't want to talk about that?
No, people don't believe like I do. I don't think you should, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a person's own
Mm-hmm.
decision. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not a good decision.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what about, like, aging? About getting gray or losing your hair? What do you feel about that?
Well, I know that it's coming and knew that it was coming. So I was reconciled that I'm getting older.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew things were going to happen with age. So I don't worry about it. Except I'd like to feel good all the time so I won't have to be dependent on anyone, including Joe.
Well, you do feel good, don't you? Feel pretty good?
I feel good for my age, but there are things that are wrong with me. Like you can hear my voice. Did I tell you how that happened?
You did. You did. And you're still walking every day, and you're still working?
No, I don't walk as much. When I was young, in my teens, first came down here, I used to walk at night, go out and walk blocks and blocks and blocks, because I like to think. And while I'm walking, I think. And if you do something else, you've got to think about what you're doing. But walking, you don't have to. So when you say a person couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time, well, I couldn't walk unless I was thinking.
Good. That's pretty good. I remember your little 12-year-old grandchild, Daryl, my nephew, asked you a question once. I wonder if you remember the answer to it. He asked you, where do we go when we die? Do you remember what your answer was?
I think I said, well, you have to wait and see.
Right.
Because no one is returned from that land beyond.
Yes. Let's see, what else? Do you want to talk anything about your family that you wanted to talk about? You know, maybe your parents or your sister and brothers, anything?
I've already talked about them, but...
Well, that's everything on Linda's list.
All right, so we'll cut it off now.
Okay.
And when I get to be, say, 90 years old, we'll have another one.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Bye for now.
Bye. Okay. Now, just to let you know that my memory is not completely gone, I will quote something I studied 70 years ago and memorized it and haven't done anything with it since until right now. You will hear me read the first paragraph. It's from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. One not uproar with his surest sauter, the drought of March hath passed o'er the rotor, and bathed at every vein in swish liqueur, of which virtue engendered is the floor. Now that is in Old English. It's English, but old.
Do you know what it means?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Well, I can't do it right now. Well, that's when we studied it. We had to interpret it. And that was just the first paragraph. We had to learn the whole thing, about 20 pages.
Wow. Wow. Okay, very good. Okay, bye for now again. Hi, this is Joan Mayers, and this is my mother, Celia Mayers, and we're going to find out how she met my father. Okay. Okay, Mother.
Okay. How I met Eugene, it was really unusual. I had met his sister where in the place that I was working. And one day she had to have someone...
Well, let's be more specific. Where were you working?
Oh, I was working in the Richard's department store at that time.
As
a sales girl.
And what were you selling?
I was selling bags, and just mostly good bags.
Okay.
And then they had put me, though, on the third booth, where we were just there selling anything that they would put on that booth, and in walks this young lady, and with her mother.
Well, how old were you?
I was 18 years old.
Okay.
Had just come from Jacksonville and gotten this job. And they walked up to the counter and they asked me where the shoe department was, which I told them on the third floor, but asked for Harold Cromer because he was the shoe fellow. So they did, and in the course of time she dated this, his sister dated this fellow, and then she needed someone to double date with her because she was really engaged to someone from Birmingham, Alabama. So he had told her, why don't you ask Celia downstairs to double date? And she's a very nice girl. So she did, and we did. And we double dated, and it was very nice. And then one day I went over to her house just to visit with her, and in walks this young man. He was 22 years old. Very nice looking.
Picture was there.
Oh, yeah.
The story I heard was that you saw his picture first.
Yeah, well, that's true. But wait, yeah, that's true. I saw this picture of a young fellow on this girl's, his sister's bureau. I said, who is this? And she says, he's my brother. And I said, how old is he? He was very cute, very good looking. And she says, he's 22. And I said,
don't say anything. That's not true.
And he said, what? And he said, she said, but he doesn't go with, you know what's that?
No, because,
all right.
Sorry to interrupt.
Can we go on from there?
Go on.
So anyway, that's how I met Eugene. He came home that night, and he was eating his dinner, and then he started to read his paper, and I walked over and I sat on the arm of his chair, and I said, talk to me. And he says, he didn't even know who I was or anything, and I always thought I was so cute. So that was my own ego. So anyways, he walked me home that night and asked me, do I like movies? And I said, yes, I do. And so, my voice is a little bad tonight, Joe. And so, we started going together. But I still went with a lot of other fellows, so I have to put that in, Jody, because I went with Eugene for 4.5 years, 4.5, and then we got engaged. And then we didn't get married, and then I...
For how many more years did you...
Another year.
Okay.
And I had given him back his ring, and I said I was going to marry someone else. In the meantime, I was leaving for Baltimore. And when I got to Baltimore, he had already made up his mind he was going to get married. So he came up to Baltimore. And we were married in Baltimore with my mother, but not his mother, with not my father, and not just my two sisters. 3 sisters were in there. My Uncle Charlie and my mother. That was the wedding. And we went to a rabbi's study. And then from there, though, we did go on our honeymoon to New York at 104 degrees, and it wasn't the most pleasant place to be. So from there, we just left and went to Birmingham, Alabama. And there they treated me royal. It was just wonderful to meet his family and his cousins. He had 8 cousins, 7 or 8 cousins. And they were all just one get-together, and they all treated me so beautifully. And I always have loved them for that. And then we came on back to Miami. Back I went to work. And back then went to work, and we lived with his mother.
Did you go back to work at the same place where you met?
Yeah, not where we met.
Richard's department store?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, well, we didn't meet there. Where I met his sister. And so then I went back to work, and we lived with his mother for a whole year. And then we found an apartment in the northwest not Miami, Northwest, uh, uh, where it's very hot in the apartment, the northwest part of an apartment. And we lived there for about a year. And who lived there? And then we lived there longer than that. We lived there about 3 years in that apartment.
How long did you live with your...
Just 1 year with his folks. And then I had said that I was going to quit working and have a child. And so in May of...
Well, now, how many years later was this?
That was, we were married 4 years and a half. And then I got pregnant. It took me a little while to get pregnant. But I got pregnant, and then Joni was born. Well,
Right. So you're not telling the story exactly like it is happening.
well,
It's hard
no.
to think. You
Right
said,
now,
well, we moved back, and then I tried to get pregnant. It was like it was almost instantly. Which
No,
is not
three,
true.
I thought I said three.
No, but you didn't.
I'm sure I did,
I
Joni.
didn't hear it.
I said,
Oh, here I'm coaching you, and I shouldn't be doing that. Go ahead.
well, anyways, then after we were married and I had you, I had Joan, I decided it's time to get a house and not just pay rent. And so there was someone who was building houses on 14th Avenue and 17th Street. And some of my friends was living down that way too. So I got this man who was the one who was selling those houses to start me with one, which we did, and it was 2 bedrooms, and it wasn't.
How much did you pay for your first 2-bedroom home?
We paid about $4,300, I think.
And what was your monthly mortgage payment?
$29.46. This is 1994. That was a few years back, I would say. So anyway, we lived there for 14 years, and then we decided to move, and we came to live in the Gables. Should I tell them why? No. So anyway, and we've been here for 38 years. It's a lovely, lovely place. Really is. And then I had one more daughter. After I had my one, Joan, I had one more daughter 5 years.
6 years. 6 years.
That was like 5.5, no, 6 years.
5 years and 9 months. It's
Yeah.
closer to 6 years.
So, and then I had another girl, and my dear husband, when he saw me with another girl, he said, "No, boy." Oh, he was so disappointed. But I have 2 beautiful redhead girls.
I understand that you are a very famous international bridge player.
No.
Is that true?
No, that's not true.
But you do play bridge.
I am just a life master.
Okay, well tell us about that and how you got started with bridge.
Well, when I was about 16, I had met some young ladies, that friends of mine, and we used to play almost every night. And we started out playing Culbertson's Bridge. And then I gave it up for a while, and then I was playing Mahjong for 20 years. And then I played regular bridge, just rubber bridge, which we call social bridge. And we played that for 20 years. And then one day I went to a party, and they were going to play duplicate bridge. I had never heard of duplicate bridge. And so I listened to what they were talking. They were talking about a Mr. Gorin who wrote a book. So I went to the library, and I got that book, and I began to study. And then I didn't play ordinary bridge anymore. I started just to play duplicate bridge, and I can tell about how I started with Faye Hedda, you know. And she took me to a club, and I thought I was a good player. But anyways, I began to really pick up on the game. But you had, in order to become a life master, you had to go and to all the big tournaments. And so, did I go on from there again?
Mm-hmm.
And so I met someone who I could go with. Not only this Faye Hedda, but later I met a gentleman that liked to play bridge too, and I began to play with him steadily.
And what was his name?
Bob Rosen. His name was Bob Rosen.
Uh-huh.
But anyway,
And isn't it true that he was younger than your oldest daughter?